Hi, YouTube. Welcome back to my channel. Crystal welcomes you home. I am a licensed realtor and financial consultant in the state of Texas. I primarily service people in the far North Dallas, Texas area. And today I am thrilled to introduce someone truly inspiring. She's one of my friends and attorney, Briana Robertson. I'm going to be asking her a series of questions as it relates to limited liability corporations and the importance of having an LLC when functioning as a realtor. She's going to talk about the investment side and partnerships, and you just don't want to miss this segment. I'm going to give you a little bit of information about Briana before I bring her on. I had to write a few notes because I just was not able to memorize all of her accomplishments from the top of my head. So here it is. Briana, from the age of 12, knew she wanted to be an attorney. Inspired by Claire Huxtable from The Cosby Show, determined to make a difference, she graduated magna cum laude from Arizona State University with a dual bachelor's degree in justice studies and African American studies. She then earned her Juris Doctorate from Howard University School of Law in 2015. Briana's experience spanned from working with the U.S. Department of Justice and civil rights organization to serving as both a prosecutor and a public defender, handling thousands of cases in her career. She's also a trusted advisor in business law, probate, and wealth management. Briana calls herself an advocate for people, taking a personable approach to every client she represents. In her free time, she mentors young girls, give back to the community, and enjoy time with her beautiful family. Let's dive into her journey as I welcome Briana Robertson. Welcome, Briana Robertson. Briana, before we start, is there anything that you would like to start with?
I'm just happy to be here and just to give some advice to help everybody, especially as we're getting ready to gear up for the new year. Oh, goodness. Especially as we're getting ready to gear up for the new year and prepping for 2025 so that way 2025 can start on the right foot and everybody have a great year. And so I just want to give some business tips to make sure you guys are doing business on the right foot.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. We're in last quarter and they say you should always plan for your next quarter in the quarter before. So if you're planning for the quarter that you're in the quarter, you're late.
You're definitely late. It's a little too late to come up with the plan while you're in the middle of the quarter because time moves fast. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, do you want to talk a little bit about your firm, or do you want to go into the questions and say that for the last part?
No, I can talk a little bit about my firm. So, my firm is BC Robertson Law, and we are based here in Dallas, Texas. And my law firm specializes in doing business law as well as probate law. So, we're talking about business law, we're talking about setting up your LLCs, doing contract negotiations, contract drafting, intellectual property rights, so trademarks, copyrights. And then on the other side of that coin, we do estate planning, such, wills, trusts, power of attorneys, healthcare directives, helping people draft deeds for their homes, and also probate work for people who don't have their estate plans and some type of family member. We help them with that. And naturally, those two, intercede or intertwine with real estate. Real
Absolutely.
estate, we run into that all the time. We deal with a lot of realtors. And so that's what we
Yep.
do here at BC Robertson Law. We love doing it.
Yes. And I will make sure that I put all of your information, your contact information, your website, and the address to your office in the description. So if someone wants to reach out to you and they're in Dallas or in Texas, they'll have your information. Okay.
Yes, 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 yes.
Okay. Well, the first question I have for you is, why should a real estate agent consider operating under an LLC, whether as a sole proprietor or independent contractor?
Okay, so the reason for this is the reason why any business person should have a registered entity. An LLC is a common one that is used for a lot of people, that works for a lot of people. Because some people can use a C corp, but for realtors and most of them, an LLC is what you're going to want to protect your assets. That's essentially why you're going to want an LLC. If you're operating as a sole proprietor without any type of legal backing, such as you haven't filed anything with the Secretary of State, your assets are all at risk. So if you do something wrong, if somebody has a grievance against you and they sue you, your house, your cars, your bank accounts, all of that stuff is now at risk. So if you get a judgment against you, all of that stuff could be seized to take care of that judgment. And we don't want that because we work hard for our stuff.
Yeah.
But for most people, you'll want an LLC to protect your assets. So that way, if somebody sues you, they're only going to be able to sue the LLC if you're doing business, as your LLC, and only the assets your LLC owns will be with a agreement grab, none of your personal.
Now, this wasn't one of the questions that was written down, and I'm just going to shoot it out here just in case you can expound on this. But we have E&O insurance. We're under the impression that we're completely protected because we have E&O.
Right. Well, I mean, even though you have that insurance, that doesn't mean that somebody's not going to try to sue you, because what if the insurance company denies your claim? Like, you get that too as well. Like, you think that just because you have insurance that they're just going to pay everything. What if they deny your claim? What if your insurance is not enough to cover the injury? These are
Yeah,
all possibilities that can happen. So if
yeah,
your whole banking on the fact that, oh, my insurance is going to take care of it, well, sometimes they don't. And then your personal assets are now at risk. Why do that when you could just have a simple LLC to do your business under, and not put just don't put your assets at risk? Why would you take that gamble when you don't have to?
yeah, yeah. I think E&O insurance is like mandatory. It's good to have as a backing, but then you do want your business to be a separate entity from who you are, and I truly agree with that.
Yes.
How does forming an LLC help real estate agents minimize personal liability and protection for their assets?
So how it minimizes it and really protects it is that when you create your LLC, it's just like you said, you're creating a separate entity. So it's almost like, I like to describe it as, thinking of it as creating a separate person that's going to take like all the blame should you mess up in your business, or somebody sues you and get mad at you for what you did while working your business. And
Yeah,
so instead of suing you, it's like, well, you sue the business. You can't sue me because
yeah,
I'm not working as me. I'm working as the owner of this business. It's the business that you're contracting with, not with me. And so I think of it as you're creating a separate entity, almost like creating a separate person, and this person is created solely for taking on all the risk. I don't
yeah.
know if there's any believers in here. Think of it, and not trying to compare your business to Jesus, but like how Jesus took on our sins instead of us. Like, your business is
Absolutely.
taking it instead of you.
Absolutely. I love that analogy. It's like, you want to be able to put your burdens in another area just in
Right.
case human error does happen. We're not robots. We do make mistakes. And some people try to capitalize off of our mistakes. So I
Sure.
absolutely agree with that.
Yes.
Um, what are the tax advantages or disadvantages for a real estate agent when operating through an LLC?
So one of the benefits when operating through an LLC is that you now have the tax write-offs. It's just like any business. You can have tax write-offs that you can have that you wouldn't get as a sole proprietor, working as a sole proprietor, or, anything of that nature. Because when you operate as an LLC, you can take advantage of, like, if your mileage, I know as realtors, you guys are driving all the time showing homes
Mhm.
and whatnot. All that mileage could be write-offs that you could use for your LLC. If you're using any materials, printing, office space, your phones, all of that stuff, you could be used as write-offs for your LLC to help with the tax advantages. And then as your LLC grows, you could change the taxation status. So you can do, like, for example, you have like S corp. S corp is a taxation status. You could be an LLC and an S corp. But once you
Mhm.
get an S corp, there's different tax advantages that come with that, and that you don't have the self-employed tax that could come with having a sole proprietorship.
Yeah.
The S corp, you wouldn't get that. In other words, you only be taxed on what it is that you made, like what you paid yourself, versus
Okay.
what everything your business makes. If you're just a sole proprietor,
Yeah.
or if you just regular an LLC tax as a sole proprietor, everything that your business makes, you could be taxed on.
Okay.
Versus if you do it as an S corp, there's different tax advantages that you can have there. And so those are the benefits of that. Now,
Okay.
this is where I tell people I'm not a CPA. I'm not a licensed tax expert. So I
Mhm.
always suggest that you talk to your CPAs to know, like, is it a good idea for me to now go to be a like an S corp, because depending on the revenue that you're making, it may or may not save you a lot of money. But I'm assuming that we're all doing this in the business, that we're making a lot of money, where yeah, having an S corp is definitely worth our while.
Yeah.
So and so
And
these
you
are
do have, I'm sorry, you
oh, go
do
ahead.
have a CPA that works within your firm with you, right?
Yes, I do. I do have CPAs that work within my firm. We have a network of CPAs that we do have referrals for people who be like, I don't have a good CPA. I don't know who I should use. I have one that I use, and I have a network of people that we have as well. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. And the next question is, are there specific types of LLC structures that are more beneficial for real estate agents specifically?
Real estate agents,
Or just like mortgage brokers, people who are like in the financial sector?
right. So I would say, like, if you're just like a real estate agent and like you're just having one business and not a whole bunch of business ventures, just a simple and a regular LLC will do. If you are in the if you're in like the property development type business, or you're getting into, bigger stuff, an LLC can do, and then depending on how much you're bringing in, you may want to consider doing a series LLC. I normally recommend a series LLC for people who do investments, only because if you have a whole lot of properties that your business acquires, you're not going to want to have all of that property under one LLC, because if somebody sues that one LLC, all your properties could be at risk. So
Mhm.
at that point, I would suggest doing a series LLC. A series LLC is when you register one LLC and you create many series underneath it, and each series is its own LLC. And what I normally tell my people who do real estate investing is making each house its own series. So that way, if somebody goes to sue, well, they sue that series, they're only going to get whatever comes from that one house, and all of your other, or whatever that asset is, and then all your other assets are not being touched from that. So
That was really good. That's really important because most real estate agents go into real estate because they have an inspiration to invest and become
right,
investors. So that's good to know. Like if you have 200 properties, you want to make sure each property is its own entity. So if something happens specifically with that one property and things happen, all of your properties aren't at risk.
yeah.
So that's good. That is
And
cool.
that can also be used too, because I know, especially in a real estate game, is you can't do everything by yourself. A lot of people in real estate, you partner up all the time. And so let's say, hey, I want to partner up and do this project. That goes again, like if you have that series LLC, you could create a series for that project. And instead of like you going into it, you have like this LLC and this LLC going into like a joint venture. And that way it's still the LLCs that are taking the risk, and not you, and not all the other ventures that you have going on.
Oh wow. So let's say, and this is off the question sheet. So let's say I have an LLC and I'm a realtor and I have a series and I want to join with two or three fellow colleagues that have a series as well. And instead of us going into this venture in our personal names, we can use our LLC series to go into that joint venture together.
Yeah, you would just create another series for that particular venture, and say like, I'm creating this series LLC to
Mhm.
this series, and this series is going to do a joint partnership with whatever business they have, and these two businesses are joining together for this project.
I love that. I love that. That's cool. That's cool. I know that's going to be a helpful tip for a lot of people who are now going into investments in this new sector or in 2025. That's going to be a huge
I
thing.
I do want to note that Series LLC is a rather new concept. Not all states have adopted it. I think only like 7 or 8 have adopted Series LLC, with Texas being one of them. So,
Yay.
yes.
Texas is always on the bandwagon.
Yes, it is.
That's
It
why I
is.
love it here.
It is. They try to
Oh,
keep up with Wyoming and Delaware, and all
absolutely.
those
Oh,
places.
okay. So our next question is let's see. Can you spend it? this may this kind of ties into the last question, but is can you explain the difference between a single member LLC and a multi-member LLC, and which might be more suitable for the real estate industry?
Right. So a single member LLC is just as it says in its name. It's a LLC that is owned by one person. Um, if it's only one person, that's what we call like our solo businesses, solo LLCs. This is your single member LLCs. Your multiple member LLCs are the ones that have more than one owner. So that means it's like a group of people got together, say we want to form this business. It has three members or three managers, depending if you want to be member manage or manager manage.
Mm-hmm.
And these three people got together, said we want to form a business, and then we have a multi-member LLC. Before LLCs came about, this would be something that we would consider like a partnership or a limited partnership. But now, because partnerships have more risk, most people are going and opting for the multi-member LLCs.
Okay. And with that, they can ration the percentage owned. Like if you got four members and one person wants to own 50%, and then the three split the other 50% that's remaining. Can you structure it like that?
You can. That would be something that you would address in your operating agreement that you create with your LLC. So how you decide to structure it, what your buy-ins are going to be, who's going to have what responsibilities. These are all things that you would have to address in your operating agreement because you have some people where like their sole job is just to fund the money and they want nothing else to do with it. You have other people where their sole job, like I don't have the money, but I can do operations.
Mhm.
So how you decide to formulate that is something that you guys, if you have multi-member, is something that you would have a conversation about, and you just want to make sure that your operating agreement reflects what you guys are trying to do.
Okay. Cool, cool. Like that one. Okay. How can an LLC impact a real estate agent's ability to qualify for certain business deductions like marketing expenses, office supplies, or professional development?
So when you say like business section deductions, I'm assuming you're talking about for taxes.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's the same thing, like because you are an entity, you're considered a business for that you can use those as tax write-offs because these are all things that you need to do business. These are, necessary expenses, expense write-offs that you need to do business. You have to market yourself, you
Mhm.
need supplies, and the IRS, they recognize that. So just by having an entity and operating as an entity, you're able to write off tax expenses that you need to do business. I thought one of the things that I thought you would and could go right into that is qualifying also for if you're doing government contracts, because
Mhm.
if you're getting into trying to do government contracts and like they might hire realtors to help scope out buildings, or they do government contracts for a plethora of things.
Okay.
To qualify for those, you're going to need a business structure as well, and those are things where you could qualify for certifications such as being minority owned, women owned, they have all of these different certifications that you could get that can put you in line to get, special government contracts. And this is
Mhm.
where an LLC can be helpful for that as well.
Oh wow! And I'm sure they're going to want to know more about that in the comments. So if you're up to expounding a little bit on that in a separate interview, I would love that because a lot of real estate agents don't know that they can be using their credentials in that way.
Yeah.
Contracting their expertise out to the government for different projects. So that's
Yeah.
big. That's really really huge.
Government needs everything. They have contracts for just about everything.
I like that. We're gonna have to talk some more about that. Okay. What are the estate planning considerations for real estate agents who operate through an LLC?
So estate planning that you want to consider when operating through an LLC is what we call succession planning. So this is what is going to happen to your business when you're not able to do so. Because a lot of people think like, oh, my business is just going to keep going. Like, no, if something happens to you, everything's going to go to a halt because nobody else has access to your bank accounts for your business. Nobody can license your business thing. What's going to happen to your clients that you have? Who's going to take care of them?
Yeah,
So
your
if you're really going to
business.
want to do succession planning, which is what we could is a type of estate planning about what happens when I'm incapacitated or I'm unable to operate my business? Does that mean my clients are just going to be, SOL, or are we going to, do I have a plan in place on who's going to take over operations? Who's going to make sure the bills get paid for my business? Who's going to make sure that this business keeps going? And then if you pass away, if you're trying to leave a legacy, and let's say you want your, family to build upon what you've built, you need to have that succession plan in place on how do you want this to be split with your family? Who are you going to want to run it? And how are you going to make sure that even if you decide to have, like, you choose a different person to run it, but you still want your family to get the payment benefits. Like, these are all things that need to be addressed in your estate plan. And
Yeah.
not only that, but as realtors, you should also be advising your clients about getting estate plans whenever they're purchasing, real estate, because real estate is one of the biggest things that people fight over when somebody's incapacitated or pass away. Like, yes, you have bank accounts, but it's really the real estate that you find the biggest fight on: who's going to get the house, who's going to sell the house, all of these things. And so these are things that I would advise when your clients are purchasing a home or purchasing real estate. The next step should be, we need to get an estate plan on what's going to happen with this if something happens to me.
You really gave me an eye opener when I visited the summit that you spoke at, and you mentioned that being married doesn't save your home from probate.
No.
And that was like, wait, what? So you mean to tell me you have a married couple, two working together, one passes away, and there's a possibility that the surviving spouse have to go through probate? Like, I had never heard that before. I heard you speak on that. So
Yeah, it's a whole lot of situations that could end you in probate, especially if you have blended families. If you have blended families, which is very common nowadays, um, figuring out like when the house was purchased, was it before or after? How are these deeds being written? That it, all of these things could play a role into whether you have to go to probate or not. A lot of times it's just a lot simpler just to put it in an estate, your estate plan, such as a trust, which is what I recommend. Put the home in a trust
mhm.
and just keep it out of the courts.
Yeah. We're gonna have to do another video on those trusts because people really don't understand the difference between a living will and a trust. And after being educated by you, it really helped me to understand, like, okay, you can have a will all day long, but you definitely need to have a trust. And for people that are watching, um, one of the things we have discovered is that people are afraid to get an attorney. They're afraid to reach out. They're afraid to get the knowledge, and they think, oh, millions of dollars, and that's not true. You can save yourself a lot of money by hiring an attorney or reaching out and paying that consultation fee just to make sure you have the facts on how you can keep yourself and your assets and your family protected. So, thank you for the information that you shared that day too. That was
Yes,
awesome.
yes.
Um, how can an LLC help with business successions transfer ownership of the business to heirs or partners in the future? You kind of touched on that a little bit, but we didn't discuss how it transferred to partners.
So if you have a partner, and this is once again, one of those things that we discuss in your operating agreement. So, you can have clauses in your operating agreement that says, hey, if one person, is incapacitated or, passes away, like, they now have a share of a business, like, what happens to that share? Does it automatically go to their family? And now you have to deal with their family members to run that business, even though it's like, when I went into business, I didn't say I wanted to run and operate this business with your son. I said I want to do this business with you. And now that you
Mm-hmm.
passed away, you're telling me that I now have to do business with your son. Like, I don't want to agree to that. So now I don't want to do business anymore. And then now the whole business is a mess, is shutting down and all of this stuff because you're not here to iron out what should happen to your end. You're like this, it's a whole mess that can
Yeah.
happen. So
Yeah.
this is why you want us to address this one in your operating agreement, and then also your succession plan about how your portion is going to be divided. Is it going to be that if something happens to you, your part of the business automatically goes to your partner? Or are you going to say like your partner can run the whole business if something happens to you, but your share, any money you would have received goes to your family? Or is it going to be that they have an option to buy you out? Does your family have to be able to have a voting say? It's a whole lot of things that you need to think about when you're going into partnerships and figuring out what's going to happen to your share of a business should something happen to you. And so when
Mhm.
we're talking about succession and estate planning and like what happens with partners, this is something that you need to think about before you do the partnership and you're drafting that operating agreement, because that's going to be what controls
The
ultimately.
importance of having an attorney, because you guys are looking like this is normal life for you. Where
It
for
is.
us, we're just trying to be investors, we're just trying to form a partnership,
Make
but
money.
you just want to make money. But on your end, you see the good, the bad, and the ugly and what things can turn into, and you have the knowledge to say, hey, you may want to look into this, you may want to look into that. These are some of the probabilities that could surface should something go left. So
And that's one of the privileges is with my firm in particular, is that we do a lot of litigation. So versus just us doing just transactional work, because we do litigation, we are in the court, we have been in the courts and are in the courts. So we know what the courts are looking at, we know what jurors are looking at, and we know what common disputes often arise because we're dealing with them. And
yeah.
so that gives us an advantage whenever we are drafting your documents, because we're thinking from like things that you would never think about. Because we are in litigation, we've seen it all. And so we know like, oh, these are all the pitfalls you need to watch out. It's like, that would never happen. It's like, trust me, they happen. And
They
so
happen.
it's like, and so you don't get in that situation. Let's make sure these documents are airtight so you're not dealing with what these other people are dealing with that's now spending hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars because their documents were not airtight or in a row.
Yeah. Yeah. They didn't have anyone that had that forethought to be able to put those what ifs in front of them while structuring their business partnership. That's
Right.
important.
Right.
Um, okay, I'm gonna let you just have your fun with this question. Why is it important for real estate agents to work with an attorney when formulating an LLC rather than attempting to handle the process on their own?
Okay, so the reason why it's so important is because everybody thinks like, oh, doing an LLC is just as simple as filing paperwork and that's it, and I have everything, perfectly right. And in a sense, you're kind of right. Technically, if you file the LLC paperwork, by the state, you do have an up and running business in LLC. The problem is that you now have this business that has no foundations, no protections, nothing in place. It's just out here like it's like putting your baby in the middle of the street. And it's like, why would anybody just leave their child in the middle of the street and out like that with no adult
No
supervision, no
protection.
protection, nothing?
Mhm.
And so that's why you want to get an attorney to help formulate your business, because one, what we do, I always tell people that attorneys are probably one of your most favorite business strategists, because we deal with a lot of businesses that we can see like help you figure out how to grow. And not only that, but plan for your growth. Because as you grow, your legal liabilities are also going to grow. And you're going to want to make sure that the structures of your business grow with that. And so if you don't have the proper foundations to start out with, I tell people you are one lawsuit away from losing everything. And you're not going to know how to protect from that if you just think, oh, I can just Google and figure it out. There's certain things that like you might find information on Google, but you have no idea how that information is applied in courts or when the judges read it. That's what we go to school to get trained for. We're trained to figure out how to apply this knowledge, because it's different. I always tell people it's very different from being theoretical when you're learning it in theory versus in practice. And as a lawyer, we know how it works in practice. And so we know how to use this information and these tools to protect you versus this like, oh, I'm just doing this because that's what it says. And I think this is everything that needs to be in there. No, like
Mhm.
that's what we do. We help you strategize for your business to one, help you grow, saying like these are the things you need to do in order to grow your business. And these are also the safeguards that you need to make sure that as you're doing these things and growing your business is protected along the way. So it doesn't get taken out by something like working this hard and then it's taken out by one simple lawsuit because you didn't think to have the proper
Yeah.
safeguards in place. And that's why you want to have an attorney as your business strategist, why you want to have an attorney to help you set up your business, why you want to consult with an attorney when you're starting a business. Because we not only just think about where you are right now, but we have the foresight of where you can go and know like how you can get there.
Absolutely. And then you don't want to call an attorney once you made this monstrosity for yourself and it's like, here, fix this. And now the attorney is like, okay, I want top dollar because now you're wanting me to justify why you decided to make these decisions, and you're talking to a judge who really don't want to talk to anyone unless they're an attorney. And so now the attorney has to prove to the judge your cognizance, and there's none because you
Not
made
only
an uninformed decision.
Not only that, I often tell people if you're trying to go to the judge and you're thinking the judge is going to give you sympathy, you're in the wrong place. Like the courtroom is not where you go to try to get sympathy, and like emotions have no place in court. Like if that's where you're trying to go to get sympathy, you are in the wrong place. That is not the place to be like, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. No, the place for that is in the beginning when you're formulating your stuff, not in front of a judge. Judges are there to be impartial and see the facts before them and make a decision. They're not there to make a decision based on sympathy and like your feelings and all of that. They're there to like, this is what the facts say. Based off of these facts, this is what I think should happen. And that's just not that's that's the place that you don't want to be to figure out like how am I going to fix this mess. You
Yeah,
fix the mess before you get there, and that's when you're
absolutely.
starting and building your foundation.
I agree. That was good. I really like that. That's going to help a whole bunch of people because you
Yeah,
have these people that you have these Google lawyers, Google doctors, Google real estate agents, and it's like because Google said it, I know I can do it on my own, and then they get into these sticky situations, and then they're like, now I need to call a professional.
yeah, y'all letting TikTok get y'all in the lawsuits.
Don't be a
So
TikTok attorney.
y'all trying to let TikTok get y'all in the lawsuits and then coming to attorneys like, oh, can you fix this? And it's like, well, we probably can, but it's going to cost you a lot more versus if you just have me help you in the first place because litigation is not cheap.
Yeah, yeah, yes. That's funny.
So,
I like that one. Thank you for that. Um, how can an attorney help investor groups navigate complexities of an LLC operating agreement, particularly when it comes to clearly defining roles, profit sharing, and dispute resolutions?
So this goes back to, you've heard me say it, that operating agreement. And I know you mentioned that in your question. How
Yeah,
an attorney can help with that is when you have a group of people and you guys are in the process of creating this LLC and you guys are having ideas. Well, as an attorney, one, I can only represent one party. So I actually think it's best to have that each partner have their own attorney. I
yeah,
often have people where it's like you have three people who want to form this partnership. It's like, hey, can you help us form this partnership and do this operating agreement? And I have to say, like, well, yes, I can help you, but you have to understand that if I'm going to help all three of you guys, I can't give anybody any advice one way towards another. Like, should we include this clause? Should we not include this clause? Because I, as an attorney, our job is to fight zealously for our client. And
yeah,
so if I'm going to do that for all three of you guys, if it ever comes to a point where it's going to be one person over the other, I can't help you decide that. All I can do is say, like, well, these are your options. I can't like fight for you, but I can, draft the documents, but I can't fight for you because I can't zealously
yeah,
fight for, all three people.
yeah,
So I want to suggest that each party would get their own attorney. And with that, as you're discussing what you're going to want in the agreements, how you want this to operate, you have somebody that is fighting on your behalf to make sure your interest is, being cared for. They're also going to have somebody like attorneys. We're not afraid of of somebody else having their own attorney. As a matter of fact, we prefer that. We love that because it's a lot easier when it's like us as attorneys, like, fighting over these things because we're looking at the legal issues and, just advocating for our client. And oftentimes, when each party is represented, the agreement is more fair and it's more thorough. And you have, something that works for all outcomes with figured out all of these things that you mentioned as pitfalls. These are things that we forward think and we try to come up with a solution together to help, figure this out. Because as lawyers, we're not thinking like, oh, with emotion, like, with
It's more like
every,
a meeting of the minds.
right.
Like,
Think about, right.
everyone knows the law. You're going
Right.
into it together, and you don't have the emotional attachment there, and it's just a conversation full of facts.
Right. Versus
Basically.
if you have it just between you guys and it's like me trying to do it with you guys, you're having emotion like, oh, but my family and all, like emotions don't really have a place in business. And that's how business mistakes happen.
Yep.
Is start letting
Yep.
emotions in it. So that's why us as lawyers, that's why because we're here like, look, I'm just here to represent my client. I'm not letting my emotions get into it. We're just here to try to talk facts and get a fair agreement for all parties. So that's the benefit of having a lawyer there.
I'm really glad that we brought that question up because I am in the process of formulating a investment group.
Right.
And I was thinking, oh, we could just get one attorney, and then that attorney can put all of our paperwork together. But now that you explained it in on these terms, it just kind of helps me to understand, like, okay, if you are going to formulate this group, everyone needs to come with their own attorney, and so that they have their own representation.
Now, with that, I will say that there is a difference between, you have all of us attorneys as you're formulating this business, like all of us as attorneys are trying to come up with a fair agreement, like a operating agreement and how this should be formulated. But as a business as its own, like once the entity is created, like then you can have one attorney because at that point, I'm not representing each of you like individually. At that
Mhm.
point, I would be representing the
The
business,
entity.
and the
Oh.
business is its own entity. And so any
Mhm.
actions I take, it's like it's not against you personally. I'm just doing this on behalf of the business because at that point, the business is my client. But when
Okay.
you're negotiating a partnership agreement and each person has like different interests,
Yeah.
that's when it's like as we're negotiating your interests, like
Mm-hmm.
I can't negotiate for everybody's interest. I can only negotiate for one person's interest. But if the LLC is already formulated, then
Yeah.
you can have one attorney because that attorney is representing the business and not the people inside the business.
That
So
makes
I
sense.
would be doing whatever is best for the business. And, sometimes that might be like, hey, this member here is breaching their fiduciary duty to the business. So like, you can't do that. So it's not personal. I represent the business.
I love that. So basically, just with the engineering of the bylaws, you want to have your individual attorney so that you can put the bylaws together. Everyone has their position within the corporation. But once it's solidified, you can have one attorney to oversee that entity.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, that's good.
And I'm not saying that you can't have an attorney like with you whenever you guys are discussing the partnerships. I'm just saying, like, if you guys are amicable and you guys agree on everything, and you're just saying, like, hey, we just want to make sure these terms, like, we word it correctly, that's
Mhm.
one thing. But I wouldn't be giving like any individual legal advice, like, hey, but what if I want to do this and she does that? Like, I wouldn't be able to give that type of legal advice in that situation. But
Yeah.
if it's like we already have these terms and I just want you to draft it, that's one thing. But if it's like
Mhm.
you want to ask about your particular interest, you're going to want to have somebody looking at that for you.
Okay.
Like, y'all
Okay.
can't share.
So there's a difference between an attorney who's overseeing the entity versus an attorney overseeing your personal interest in that entity.
Yeah.
Okay. So what would you tell like a real estate agent who has been functioning under their just been functioning as a sole proprietor, and in 2025 they want to take their business to the next level, and they're trying to see how they can structure their LLC, and you can probably touch a little bit on some of the things that they're going to need to do in terms of the filing of that LLC in a specific time frame.
One of the things that I would tell you to do is, one, you're going to want to draft that LLC, file that LLC. Two, you're going to want to get an operating agreement. I can't tell you how important that operating agreement is. That's like the one. And I think that was the question that you were asking is what is one of the mistakes that a lot of realtors make and people in general make when formulating a business. And that is they forego getting the operating agreement. Everybody thinks like I just filed this LLC and that's it, and they don't realize like how important these other steps are, and they don't understand, and they just overlook the importance of having a well-drafted operating agreement. So you're going to want to do that, and then after you do that, you're going to get your own EIN and your own bank accounts, all of that stuff. Make sure that you get your beneficial owner reports filed with FinCEN. That's something that was newly implemented this year in 2024. So those are the basics that you're going to want to do. But then as you start growing, and let's say you start adding employees and you're starting to add other people to help you, you're now going to want to have operating procedure manuals on how your business operates that you can give to anybody that works with you. Because when you start adding other people to work along with you, you're now responsible for another set of people. And if you're going to be responsible for them, you want to make sure that you have operations, because if they go and do something wrong as an agent of your business, you can be sued and you'll be held liable. And if you don't have operations to show, like, hey, we don't know if they're even complying with operations or whatnot, like, it's just a mess and makes you seem even more irresponsible. So you're going to want to have an operating agreement on how your business operates. You're going to want, and then as you start getting more, that's when you're going to start looking into doing HR, employee manuals, all of that stuff. These are all things that you're going to need as you grow, because you can't grow alone. You can only grow when you start adding more people. When you start adding more people, there's more legal risk. So there's more protections and safeguards that you're going to need. So if you've been operating by yourself this whole time and now you're looking to add, it's probably because you're growing significantly, where you're getting to the point where it's like, I need to add people. And this is when you really need to start adding these extra safeguards.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I want to say this one thing, and there's a lot of realtors that will hire a transaction coordinator or someone to handle their transactions on the back end. I don't know. So I've never heard it was illegal for someone, for like, say for instance, myself, I don't have one, but like say if I want to get an assistant to put all of my documents in and speak directly to like the title company about certain things concerning a transaction that I have in process. How do you protect yourself in case your transaction coordinator makes a mistake?
So this depends on how you hire them. Are you hiring them as an employee or as a contractor? Or because if they're a contractor and they have their own business, you could put that in a contract like, hey, I have no bearing on how they operate. I'm solely operating them for this one specific thing. So this is what happens when you have your independent contractors. Independent contractors, they're their own business. They have their own way of doing things. You have no control on how they do business. You just contracted them in to handle this one, project or this one thing. And outside of that, you have no control. So there in that contract that you have with that's independent contractor, you can protect some safeguards there that if I do get sued, you now owe me back money. But if they're now an employee of yours, unfortunately, there's not much that you can do to necessarily be absolved of any work that they might make a mistake from, because they're considered, as your employee, they're considered an agent of your business. So how you protect that is you have to have the proper procedures in place. And if something does go wrong, you have to have the proper procedures in place on how you rectify that. How do you do discipline for that employee? Do they automatically get fired? Like, this is what HR people do all the time. Like, if they have an employee who is now harassing another employee, you go and tell HR, because you don't want the business to now be liable for discrimination. So what you're going to do is you're going to hire HR. HR is going to do an investigation. If they find that there's discrimination, somebody's getting fired, because I can't have this liability in my business, because if I keep letting this go, I'm now getting sued, because now the business is allowing this person to discriminate against somebody else, and we can't have that. That's against the law. Same thing for your business. If you have something going on with your employee, you need to have operations in place for if something happens, how are you going to address that and address it promptly, so that way your business is not at risk. If you don't have those operations and procedures on how to address it, you are liable for the works of your employees, because they are agents of your business. That's why it is so important to have that operation manual, and so important to make sure that, if people don't, like, get them out of there. I know we don't like to fire people, but like, they're putting you at risk.
Absolutely. And so those procedural, operational, or procedural? Are they called articles of incorporation, or is that something separate?
No, it's something separate. There are articles of incorporation is what you file with the Secretary of State. Then you
Right.
have your
Okay.
operating agreement. This is how the owners of the business will, like split the operations of the business, how do you do buy-ins and how does the owners get their draws and all of that. Then you have like it's like an employee handbook, essentially. Like if you're working, you have this employee handbook. This is what tells the employees like these are our rules. This is when you clock in. These are the things that we don't allow. That's what we're
Mhm.
talking about. It's like these
Got it.
employee handbooks that have your
Got it.
operations and procedures or how your business runs with your employees.
And that protects the business once it's drafted. Right while you're drafting the LLC, you want to have something like that in place to protect the business and say, hey, listen, we have these procedures in place. This is what, our employees know what these procedures are. So if they go against it, you can show that you did your due diligence to make sure that everybody was operating under those particular
And
demands or
And so when I say like how that protects you, because technically like your employees are agents of your business, how that protects you is if they do something outside of what that procedural manual is and they just went rogue and did it themselves, like
Mhm.
that could help with, some safeguards, especially if you didn't do anything about it. Like, no,
Mhm.
like that's how that helps you. It's like for that very reason. It's just like, especially as a realtor, you're out driving and they're driving the company car. They get in an accident. Guess what? Your company is not going to be liable for the accident because they were driving a company car. So they're
Yeah.
going to you think they're going to sue the person? No, they're going to go for the insurance first, but they're going to also include your business in that lawsuit because it was a company car.
Mhm. Good information. So, do you have any other things that you want to add?
No, not at this time, except, we have a lot of knowledge over here. So if you have questions, you can always feel free to schedule a consultation and I'd be happy to help.
Where can they find you? Are you on social media?
I am on social media, and all platforms. You can find me at BC Robertson Law. That is the same for Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. You can find me YouTube, LinkedIn at BC Robertson Law is where you can find me. And you can also schedule consultations and find out more about me on my website at bcrobertsonlaw.com.
And I'll make sure I put everything in the description. So if you didn't get that, you can just look in the link and you'll have all the information. I'm so happy you sat down with me.
Oh, and then I forgot to say, so our consultations are 30 minutes, but if you have, like, let's say that you just want to really strategize like your whole business, like, hey, I have no idea where to start, and I have no idea like how to strategize to do my business, grow my business, I just want to plan like how to do business. I don't have that information. We do have 1 hour, what we call 1 hour strategy sessions. And during the strategy session, we hear out your ideas and help you come up with a strategy to not only like just talk about your legal needs, but how to grow your business and then like what things you need as your business grows and at what step. So it's not like, oh, in a conversation where I have this one legal issue, is where we just deep dive and really look and lay out a plan for you. We strategize,
I
give you a
love it.
strategy for your business. And
Oh,
so I really suggest getting one of our strategy sessions.
I love that. So there you have it, Miss Briana Robertson. You can get a strategy session, learn, you can get all the information you need to know, not only just about how to structure your business, but to give you some insight on how that business can grow over a certain amount of time. Because none of us go into business to be where we started it for 5, 10, 15 years. We want to grow. Everybody
Right.
wants to work towards retirement.
Yes, yes, yes.
So I
And
do
leaving a
appreciate.
legacy.
Yes, leaving a legacy. That's what it's all about. Legacy building. Legacy
Mm.
building. Will you have the information on your site about the summit that you're going to be speaking at that's coming up in January?
Yes, we'll be doing speaking at the Money Matters Summit on January 25th. There we will be talking more about estate planning and really even some business tips at that summit. So please come join us. You're going to have a lot of information where you're going to learn not only about estate planning from lawyers like me, but we're going to have insurance agents, financial strategists, just all of the gamut, and even realtors. And yours truly will also be there as well to give you guys some information so we can start 2025 on the right foot and make some money.
Yes, I'm super excited. I'll be putting also in the link how you can register for that event. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be giveaways, a lot of knowledge. I mean, I've been to one. I learned so much in a short amount of time. I felt like I was walking tall when I left that place. It's a great networking event. You'll meet people, bring your business cards, and just prepare to have some great fun. It's really a great event.
And I
Um,
believe it's going to be an online option as well, and it's free of charge.
Yes, it's free. That's even better. It's just like, I mean, it's time. Now is the time. It's time to get ready for 2025. If you're looking to make a difference, you want your business to grow, you want to put your best foot forward in the coming year, now is the time to start building your network and connecting with other people who are either where you're going, where you want to go, or on the way to where you're trying to get to.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you for sitting with me. We're going to look at the comments, and if we have any questions, do you mind doing another Q&A for some of the questions that some of the viewers may ask?
For sure.
Okay. Well, having said that, I'm going to let you get back home to the babies and the husband. You be safe. Thanks for sitting with me. I really appreciate you.
Not a problem.
Bye.